Thank you. Viviana, you want to read that?
I am sustained by the love of God. As I listen to God's voice, I am sustained by his love. As I open my eyes, his love lights up the world for me to see. As I forgive, his love reminds me that his son is sinless. And as I look upon the world with a vision he has given me, I remember that I am his son. I am sustained by the love of God.
Thank you, sis.
What's going on here? Looks like a Zoom meeting of my opinions. I just had people looking at my house through with scratching their heads and controlling their kids. So that was a moment. Bibiana, Laurie, Doug, Anna, Heidi, Tina, me. What's going on?
I just got your message. That was in my mind too. I just got it. I was like, you know, after we all sustain the love of God, or declare that we're sustained by the love of God, we can do the 200. So,
less than 200.
Yeah.
I think I told you that it's a bit of a mainstay. You can do that one anytime and have.
Oh, I know we did it on Saturday and it was really powerful. So I was thinking, and
I know it's a meltdown lesson.
It sure is.
They kind of all are. They make you realize just how full of
well, in
BS
lieu of the meltdown man, seemingly, in the beanie, the Buddha in the beanie.
I know. My new beanie fell to pieces, so I've got a commercially but look what it says. I think I told you before. This is the way.
Is that one?
Mandalorian, but I like that it says this is the way.
Well, welcome to the party.
Everything tweaks my sense of salvation, really. So what's going on? Who's doing what? Have you all had a good week, a transformative week? Plenty of catalysts. Heidi, you've had an adventure somewhere?
Yeah, family camping, crabbing trip.
Camping, crabbing trip.
Yep.
Fun. What's your buttons?
Oh, it wasn't button pushing. No, it was really beautiful and fun and hot and social. Nice. When I came back, I fell apart. Like it was like 3 days, this whirlwind. And then I just like went down to my basement. I didn't want sun. I didn't want people. I just sort of like, I broke down. It took me a few days to kind of snap out. Yesterday was the first day.
It's usually 3 days. It's like going into the tomb. You get crucified and then you know, it's just energy.
And I had my book, I had all my I'm like, oh, I'm gonna like spend some time. I'm gonna go out in the woods. I'm gonna read my lessons. No.
Didn't happen. No.
But
that's good though. It's good. I used to always have a very similar thing happen when I would go and see my family. I'd start doing the course and then you have this whole like dropping back into regular family stuff and regular mindset of like that whole human concept, of relationships and things like that. And somewhere it would just, all the apple cart would get tipped over in my head and I wouldn't even realize it. And it wouldn't be till I used to get back to the healing center and sit there that I'd always feel it in my chest, like an anxiety or an emotional just upheaval of stuff. And I'd be like, oh my freaking God, what's this from? You know, it's like you leave the comfort zone and you head out into the world and do stuff. And then the next thing you know, bam, it's just like the rug gets pulled out from under your feet. Mm-hmm. Usually if you have a catalyst and you can see it, it's more helpful, because at least then you can sort of bring yourself to an accounting with it. And you can say, oh, this person triggered me, or that situation triggered me. But just the nature of leaving familiar environment is often the trigger. You don't even realize. You know, I've met people at, what's that called when you don't want to leave your house? You can't go out into the world. Agoraphobia. Yeah, I've met people that are like that. And even going to their letterbox, it brings up so much stuff. You know, they have to go and check the mail. They've got to go outside their front door. And it's like, damn.
Well, I think, and I would say, you know, now that you're saying, you know, I'm thinking about it, like, I think the trigger, the only that I really found myself in was just like not having the things in common with my, you know, not having these like these conversations, and just feeling on this like kind of outside of the party, but trying to be part of the party, like really like, well, let me put myself like to the side so I can be part of the party. And it was just exhausting. I think it was just really, ultimately, it was exhausting.
Right. Because you're using judgment to try and work it all out. Like you're in a transition now. You're in a transition where you're going through your mind training period, and eventually that's going to come around full circle, and you'll be able to just be at the party and like in the party like everyone else, and you won't even see any difference between you and the party going on. But at the moment, you're seeing that old way of relating, and like you said, you got no one to really talk to on this level. So there's a gap, but this level, you got to sort of see that this level is kind of a working level. It's a level where you're reevaluating stuff. It's not a level that you're going to be at forever. It's not a level that you're sort of like stuck in now and you can't relate to that ever again. It's just kind of like a working level, like you're studying for something and it's consuming everything in you. But eventually your study finishes, you sort of just get over the study period and you find yourself with a whole new purpose, but back in the same framework of the world, family, friends, and everything, guided by spirit rather than guided by the ego, which is exhausting. I used to find it very difficult when I was going through the thick of my transition to actually sit with my family and join in. Mrs. Smith did that, and the lady down the road, and, you know, Mum would talk to me about all this sort of stuff that she would normally talk to me about. And I'm thinking, why is she saying this stuff? Like, why do we have these conversations about what happened last week and what might happen tomorrow? And it's like, it used to do my head in. And now when I sit there, Mum still says the same things and I just listen. I don't feel like I'm on the outer, because I'm not judging myself by comparison anymore. Like the mind training's kicked in. So, but rather than be coming from my old reference of like the son who would have these reciprocal relationships and conversations with my parents and family and whatever, now I'm just the quiet son. You know, I've changed, you know, and it's like people change anyway, but I've changed to a point where my responses and things within the framework of the conversation are more contemplative and more, I don't even know if there's a word for it, but I don't want to say more spiritual, but more open. You know, they're less like having an opinion and more like having a point of view. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's broader. You know, it's broader, and I find that I really don't have much to say anyway. You know, but the anxiety always comes up where you feel like you've got to say something or join in or be how it is that your family thinks you were before. It's like when Jesus went back to Jerusalem, you know, nothing good comes out of Jerusalem. And everybody was, what is it, Tina? Nazareth. Hey, it's there somewhere, like it's in my head somewhere. And they said, oh, you're not the Christ, you're just the carpenter's son, you know, you're just the carpenter. Jesus, the buddy, makes the tables and the crosses for the Romans and all that sort of stuff. And they wouldn't and couldn't see him as the Christ because they already had prearranged ideas of who he was, you know. So it's like with your family, they already have ideas that you've given them about who you are. And now you're going through this transition. There's the temptation to want to try and display who you think you are as the new point of reference for yourself. But of course, they can't see that because they don't know what's going on in you. They just see you as whoever you were. And so you just kind of let it all go. It's just like, all right, whatever. It's a lot easier than trying to figure it out. And it's like, oh, geez, I should put myself into this situation more and whatever. And I remember my parents used to watch this show. I don't know if it's still on, The Vicar of Dibley or something. It was about this little English village. You have that? Yeah. This little English village, and all the characters would get together like once a week or whatever at their local pub, and they'd all meet, and the vicar would have like a little sherry or something, and but there'd be 6 or 7 of them around the table, all yabbering away, and the vicar would always be the one just sitting there quite quietly until the conversation came to some argumentative point, and then they'd all look at the vicar, you know, and they'd be like, "What do you have to say about this, vicar?" Because the vicar was always like the last word on reasonable thinking and stuff like that, and it would kind of resolve the situation, but from a different perspective, you know. So it was kind of tricky for me, but I've learned to sort of be like that with my family, and they used to think that I was going crazy doing this transformation. They used to be like, "What's happened to our son? Where's our son?" And now that I'm sort of through the thick of it and out the other side of it, in a sense, so they can't get enough of me, really. They're always asking me, when you come to visit, when you come to visit. They never used to ask me when I'm coming to visit. And you'll find that out, Tina, when you go to visit shortly. Was it next week? You going next week? Yeah.
Yeah. So you're just talking, and Heidi's bringing up exactly what I've been
exactly
about. So it's perfect. So thank you, Heidi.
It's all perfect.
Yeah,
but it's
absolutely.
like in all things, trust in the Lord, you know, in all things have faith, and this too shall pass. All of those little adages that you can, you know, put into play there. It's like, what a perfect environment though to practice. What a perfect environment to put your mind training into practice. You know, those that know you the closest, those that are your family and your closest friends, they're going to be the ones that give you the most clearest reflection of where you're really at in your own ability to maintain a sense of inner peace and self. And if you're honest, you'll lose that sense of self every time that you're in contact with those people, because those people don't just represent those people, they represent the entirety of the world thinking, of the world thought system. So there's like, literally, it's like me against the world or you against the world. So, but it seems to be represented by my mother or my father or my siblings or cousins or whatever, and all of that sort of thing. So it's kind of a big, you know, I don't know anyone who's ever had the discipline and the whatever to actually not collapse under that sort of situation. And usually it is when you get back, you let yourself go. You try to hold yourself together, and you don't even realize you're doing it. Sometimes you get home and you just like fall on your bed and you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to see my family again.
It feels like a total setup. It feels like a total setup.
It is a total setup.
Yeah. It's like, I'm going to be in the country, like you were camping, Heidi. I'm going to be in the country, like with no really way to distract myself. Like none of these little things that like this bubble wrap that I have around myself, you know, I'm not going to be able to communicate with, I don't think. We'll see. And it's just like.
Don't try to preempt it, Tina.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
Just let it be miraculous. Let it be miraculous. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
And you'll see where it is that the temptation to want to try and wrest control from letting it be miraculous shows up.
Yeah, let's do that. I choose that one. I choose that option. Yeah. I'm gonna mute myself.
What's the thing? It's plan for the best, but expect the worst, or something or other. It's like, I think it was not Sigmund Freud, but one of those guys. It's like, if you accept that it's going to be worse than you can imagine, you can plan for the best of that, or something or other. Anyway, but
it's always like, comedy.
I know, you're always setting yourself up for failure. As soon as you try to imagine how it's going to be, you're setting yourself up for a fall, because you're putting guidelines and parameters in place, and you cannot not walk into the situation referring to them, because you've already given them a meaning. Whereas if you just let it be miraculous, it's like, I don't know, I'm just going to be miracle minded. I'll go there. I'll have nothing to say. Everyone's going to be looking at me. How come you're not feeling okay? Why aren't you joining in? It's like, well, because I'm just very calm. I'm no longer looking for external fulfillment for me to feel like complete or anything like that, So, and it's funny how you watch how subtle that need for validation can be. It's like, it's really, really ugly. But I see it sometimes. I put up a post and then I'll review it before I put it up. Usually, yeah, of course. You can't see your own denial. You can't see it. Like, you put it up, and then you wait for someone to say something, a reflection or whatever comes back, and you go, aha, there we go. That's a good point. And sometimes it's like, you've got to expose yourself to be undone. These days it's not so harsh. It doesn't seem to be so harsh, because I no longer have any real concern about what comes back particularly, but you still get the crazies, you still get the ones that make no sense at all, and it's like, I never know what to do with those, because they're still reflections of thinking that I haven't addressed. It's like, I can't even relate to that. What do I do with that? I'll just give it to the Holy Spirit, and I'll see if it shows up again in a way where I can look at it and sit with it for a second. But the thing about stuff online is, you don't, because it's all written, you don't really hear the emotionality of a person's expression, and you don't really hear those little inferences that give away the mindset of the person saying the thing. So quite often, 90% of what comes back to me on Facebook, I take it the wrong way or whatever, and it's always the ego speaking first. I have to sit back and I have to think about it, and it's like, all right, let me consider my reply, rather than just reply off the cuff with a bunch of spiritual crap that I've learned over the last 30 years. That's easy to do, but to actually let your words reflect mercy, and to be merciful, and to be offering the voice for peace in a situation that seems to be presenting a combative kind of environment, like, it takes a moment. It's like, it takes to step back and to breathe, and it's like, all right, what do I say here? How do I go? How do I proceed? Listen, learn, and do, basically. Let me ask the Spirit, let me sit with this and step back. As soon as you step back, you're already connecting with Spirit. But remembering to do that is the clincher. You need the clincher. If you go in without the clincher, you're going to miss it, and then it's going to come back around and bite you in the arse. So. Viviana, what's happening?
I like what you said, that it's like studying for exam, and the job is not finished yet. I do see within me. I do see within me the tendency. I do see within me the tendency, the family. You see the family, and the tendency says, my own family doesn't care at all, and that mindset will say, but situation is dire. We're on welfare. An emotion comes up, you see, and I want to be right in it, but it's my curriculum. And then there's my estranged husband who suffered a stroke, and I made a decision that we don't live together, and marriage finally fall apart. Would before, in my fearful mind, I was scared to leave the marriage, and the life gave me opportunity now to finish it on its own. Suddenly I wake up and next day he had a stroke, he can't speak even. And now he's going to have an open heart surgery. And I have a family, a strange family, what by the saying of someone else's mindset, what is reflection of my own, saying they have a Zoom meeting to crucify me, who I am, how I am, and whatever. But doesn't matter, because it's my own reflection of my own thing, what is triggered and bothered by it. And it's not crazy turbulence, but I'm not at peace. So I do see there's still that habit who wants to say, I don't have a value to be chosen one. And I must be guilty, and guilty in a sense like I'm not capable. I don't have what it takes, you know, and I see it's giving meaning. I'm giving my own meaning to the word, because Heidi said, oh, we did have this kind of trip. I'm like, I don't have a trip with a family. But that mindset totally ignores there are trips from what you call strangers, you know, what wants to call strangers, they are there. And again, that sense of I'm rejected and abandoned. I rejected myself and I abandoned by still wanting to play the role I am the victim.
Right.
And I see that's what it is for. And even emotion when it comes up, and I just allow myself to speak, doesn't matter how ugly it is.
Stop. No, stop. You see what you just said? You just said to me, I can see what it's for. And then you kept talking.
Yeah.
In the second that you can see what it's for, convert it.
Thank you.
Don't keep going with the story, because sometimes it's very hard to see what it's for. Sometimes you'll sit with the story and analyze it, which, I mean, the analysis of error is not what the ego is attempting to teach you. The Holy Spirit is attempting to teach you. The Holy Spirit is attempting to teach you to focus on the truth, to focus on love, right? But in your own story, you cannot not see where it is that you deny that, right? You just said to me, I see what that's for, and you didn't even hear yourself say it. You just kept going with the story. If you could hear yourself, I know what that's for, you would instantly stop. Right? It's like in last week's meeting, I think it was, and I was saying to Tina about how we just see stuff on the surface. Our story plays out on the surface, and we see where it is that I sabotage it, or I get the results of my own thinking. But rather than actually apply the principle in that moment, I continue on with the storytelling, and as if it was somehow part of the reality that I was here to fix. It's not. I'm simply looking for the place in my mind where I'm opening up to the idea that the correction for all of that has already occurred. I'm looking for that place where the opening is, where the doorway is. And that's in the place where I see my own action of mind. And you just said, I just saw it, you said. I see what that's for, right?
Thank you. Thank you. I did not allow myself to feel the power behind those words, actually.
No, stop. You're doing it again. Ready? There's an opening there. And you're looking and analyzing it again. I didn't allow myself to feel. I didn't this, I didn't that. It's like, no, none of that. That's just the ego trying to recover and make up another story about a story you just told. Okay. See where it is. Like when you said, I see what that's for, apply it there. Don't tell yourself anything else. Get out of the way. Let the Holy Spirit in. Draw your circle.
It's for me. It's for me.
Right.
I am responsible how I see things. I am the power. I have the author of my experience. It's for me. It's for me. It's for me.
Right. Now, what are you going to do with that?
Ask myself, is it not myself, ask the truth within me. Ask the Holy Spirit, the love within me, is it really true? Is it true that there can be power over me? Is it true that my worth is dependent on something? Is it true that I'm not the chosen one? Is it true that I need to belong and I'm not belonging? Is it true that I'm separate from that? Is it true that I am lacking or I'm deprived of something?
Okay, do you want to see that differently?
Yes. Yes.
You already know it's not. You already know that's not true. You already know it's not true.
I already know, and there's a temptation still wants
No. Ready? Stay in that place. Don't try to recover. You already know it's not true. Now stay there. Don't write anything else on that board. Clean slate. I know it's not true. Right? Now, show me the truth. Don't you put your 2 cents worth in. As soon as you try to decide what you think should be written on that board, you're not leaving it blank for the Holy Spirit to write. Okay? Yeah. It's a really tricky little, because we're in this process of spiritual learning or unlearning, whatever you want to look at it as, because we're in this process, we've got all these incredible spiritual teachings that we actually think are the answer to our problems. They're not. But our ego mind will take all of these spiritual learnings and try to postulate them as if they were some kind of an answer that, oh, I'll just tell myself what this is and I'll make my own corrections and I'll do my own thing. And it's like, all that Jesus is ever telling you is your own thoughts don't mean anything, right? But we're going to use your own thoughts to show you where it is that you've given them a meaning that has no value. It's not true. You've already seen that, but your mind is hell-bent on trying to analyze it rather than give it over in its entirety. You already know that none of those things you just said are actually real.
Yeah, clean slate.
They're all illusions. Right? Now, stay there. Stay in that place. All that emotionality that you're feeling about that situation, let it come up without trying to judge it and decide what it is or how you should deal with it. You don't know how to deal with anything. But the ego, right, exactly. The ego is going to always want to put its finger in there and go, oh, Bibiana, look at this. This is why I did that. No. There's no why, because you never actually did anything in reality. You're just always looking at that idea, oh, I'm maintaining a false belief about myself as being a Bibiana in a world with other family, friends, and whatever, and all these stories, right? The point where you can see why you're doing that is to maintain separation. In the moment you see it, let it go. You can't know how to let it go. It has to be miraculous. I don't know how to deal with this, but I can see what I'm doing in my own mind. I don't need an answer to it. I don't need to be told it's not true. I can already see it's not helpful. Now, what do I want to do about that? I'm going to give it to the Holy Spirit, or I'm going to ping pong it backwards and forwards between my spiritual concepts and try to find the most likely outcome amongst the thoughts in my head. There are no likely outcomes in the thoughts in your head. You're learning to become revelation ready. You're learning to become miracle minded. That's a place where Bibiana ceases to exist. It's like on Wednesday night with Tina. If you guys haven't watched that one, watch that one. It was an incredible. It was just like watching a house of cards come crashing down, crunch, 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 one thing after the other after the other. If she had a bread knife and could reach through the screen and stab me in the heart, she would have.
Brother, we didn't record it.
Oh, no, we didn't record it.
We did not record it.
Oh, that was so, what a
I thought of it later. I couldn't think of it.
Are we recording this?
We are.
Oh, is this being recorded? This is. Yeah.
It is. So Bibiana.
It's like those moments, Tina. Right. So all of these Zoom meetings, right? This try to get this. All of these Zoom meetings, all the lessons, all the study, and everything, all come together to bring the mind through this maze of conception to the point where the whole thing just collapses in on itself. Right. So Wednesday night, the whole thing just collapsed in on itself. It was perfect, right? It's like all of a sudden you got to the precipice and you looked out and there was nothing, right?
Nothing.
The ego always tries to recover from that, and it'll spin another spiritual something or other to do it. You know, there'll always be something, always. It never shuts up, right? All you can do is choose not to listen to it, right? I'm not going to focus on the error. Instead, I'm going to focus on truth. Now, I don't know what truth is, right? But I can certainly choose not to focus on error and just to wait here to be shown, to sit and be shown, right? But you've got to see where it is in your own story that you're always trying to deny it by making up a story where there's a me and a someone else and a situation else and whatever that seems to be pushing my buttons, right? But the bringing about of the healing of my mind doesn't occur through the healing of things out here. It occurs through my false belief that maintains what out here is to me. I think out there, family and friends is actually a thing. It's nothing but a forum. It's nothing but a network of orchestrated parts that are conspiring together to bring me to that point of total collapse, like happened on Wednesday night. It was perfect, right? That moment not adjusted to is literally where your enlightenment is, where your revelation is, your memory of God. It's just on the other side of that thing. But of course, until you're strong enough, that revelation readiness that you, like Jesus talks in the Course, you're learning to become revelation ready, right? You're learning to purify the mind so that when something true happens in there, something true happens to you, you're going to be able to maintain an integrity with it and keep it grounded so that you just don't go batshit crazy and end up living on the street. Because that happens.
Tried.
So,
last few days.
So it's like in a sense, you know how people are always terrified of a midlife crisis, or you know, when your whole life just seems to collapse in on you and like, I don't know what I'm going to do and all these things, and you have a major drama, a major dilemma. That's actually what we're looking for.
Yeah.
We want that. That's our thing. We want that journey into fear. We want that journey into the collapse, into the terror, into the horrible, horrible moment of self-denial. That's what we're looking for. But we sort of bump our way around the edges of it, looking at it with our spiritual mind, like analyzing everything to the nth degree, possibilities and potentials, rather than letting ourselves go over. It's like dipping a toe, and then eventually you get to the point where you dip your toe and you just kind of slip in. You know, you don't even know what's going to happen, and then bang. Right. There's Doug. You're very, I'm just looking at your background there, Doug. You have an easel and some artwork on the wall. Are they look well framed up. Are they known artists or prints or something there you got going on?
Well, they're known by somebody. They're not mine. Those are other people's stuff.
My parents in the dream have, or they used to have art gallery and all that sort of stuff. So I'm always kind of attuned to paintings hanging on the wall. I've grown up with it. Another story.
Mm-hmm.
But learning to use the catalyst, Bibiana, right? You're always in the mind training. I'm training myself to stay vigilant for the kingdom of heaven, right? Which is my own sense of inner peace. And simultaneous to that, watching for where it is that I'm drawn out of it, because I'm doing that to myself. It's not like my family and friends are just doing that to me to be mean or whatever. It's like, no, they're not pushing buttons or nothing. They're not doing anything deliberately. They're just playing the part I've asked them to play so that I can see what I'm doing in my mind, keeping them in that role, rather than seeing the Christ. But to do that, I've got to use what seems to show up on this level to undo what's actually occurring at a whole other level. Like the backstory. Why is this showing up? Because there's something back here perpetuating it. Now, the moment that I see why I'm doing it out here, the moment that I see my own footprint or my own key in the lock out there in the relationship, and I can see myself doing that to myself, stop. Instantly, just stop. Take a breath and step back from the whole thing and do the work. Do the processing. Otherwise, what will happen is the ego will recover from the shock of seeing that you're doing it to yourself, and it'll try to reframe it in a more spiritually correct posturing, right? Which is pointless. The best that the ego's got is to be like a spiritual adept or a spiritual teacher or something like that. Right? It can't go any higher than that. It can't know what's beyond that. So it tries to keep you in that game with it. Right? It's kind of tenacious and sticky. And you get to that point and you're always, it's like I had a big long conversation with Dean last night, who's going through a lot of stuff, and he was talking about all his story and everything else that was going on, and then how he'd used the story to affect a shift in his consciousness and actually had a moment of witnessing the light directly, right? Little flashes, little glimpses of light in his mind when he's doing his meditation. And whilst he was telling me about it, his thinking was instantly glossing over those moments, glossing over the actual recognition that he just witnessed light in his own mind, continuing to tell the story, right? In the moment that you have a recognition in your own mind, whether that be of the light or of your part in the denial of the light, stop and let it in. Let it in as far as you can. Because literally I said to him last night, I said, Dean, did you hear what you just told me? You're just telling me you had some little glimpses of flashes of light coming through in your consciousness, which is like you're up against the veil so close that you can almost see through it, and there's like light flashing on the other side. He didn't even hear himself say it. It's like a malaise. It's like a cloud goes over the mind and dumbs you down and makes you kind of like almost oblivious to the fact that you're telling a story about, I've just seen the light. I just had a glimpse of the light. And it seems to be of no more importance or no more relevance than any other part of your story. But yet that's the whole point of everything we're doing. It's like, I want that light recognition. I want that light experience. I want that whole thing, because those light instants, those holy instants where I'm actually seeing light, whether out there around things or beyond the illusion of things or in my own mind, in my meditations, those moments are cumulative and they load up the weight to the witnessing on the side of the truth rather than the weight on the other scales of illusion, And every time you have a little glimpse of the light or you have a moment of recognition and you actually use that moment of recognition, you're putting weight on the other side of the scales and you're bearing witness to the Christ in you and the truth of you in preparation for the moment where you're revelation ready and Jesus can say, aha, there's Bibiana ready, bang, give you a revelation and show you something that's totally useful to you. But you're always learning to collaborate with it. You're always learning to cooperate with your transformation, usually in the beginning by seeing where it is you're not cooperating, by where it is you're wanting to perpetuate a story about cooperating, but not actually hearing yourself telling the story, right? Which is why you have to teach this to hear it. You have to teach this to learn it. It's tough. It's a tough gig, right? I'm teaching that there is no world so that I can hear me say there is no world on a level where the idea that there is no world and the experience of there is no world actually collide, where I'm up against the paradox, right? So on Wednesday night, Tina found herself up against the paradox in her own consciousness, completely wedged in there with nowhere to go. If looks could kill, but she was completely wedged in there. It takes some learning to get yourself into a position in your mind where you can get in there to that pointy pinnacle of the paradox and not try to back out of it, right? There is no world, there seems to be a world. There is no world, there seems to be a world. Everything out in the landscape of my human experience is offering me an ongoing opportunity. It's like there's never a moment God's voice doesn't call upon my forgiveness to save me. It's always offering me to take that step into the paradox, into the place where the two worlds collide, where my ideas of what the world is and what Jesus is telling me the world is come together, right? In that, I have no choice. One of them is real. One of them is not real. What am I going to do? I don't know. I need a miracle, right? Either that or I'm going to be, what am I going to do? And I'm going to look into my spiritual thinking to try and find the best approach, I think, from a spiritual perspective, which is just backing out of the paradox again. You know, don't back out of it. Don't try to avoid it. You actively want to be in it. Now, in order to stay in that pointy, uncomfortable place without feeling so uncomfortable that you want to back out of it all the time, it may be necessary that you have to go back out into the world a bit and do some more healing work with your family or whatever, so that you can see again and again and again in your mind where it is that you want to back out of it, and remind yourself again and again and again what your purpose actually is in that situation. Right? How that transfers to the situation is of no concern. Right? The release through forgiveness in my own mind transfers out into the dream as peace and love and all of that sort of stuff, which should. That's optimal. But how that happens is not up to me, right? There may be those rare occurrences where you'll hear the voice speak to you, this small voice, and say, go and give that person a hug, or call this person and see if they're okay. Things like that, you know, and what to say and who to do. But mostly you'll find that the miracle that occurs through your healing affects people you don't even know. They may not even be born yet. It's like whatever shift occurs in your mind, because it's one mind, may be paving the way and is paving the way for other things to take place that wouldn't ordinarily have taken place if you hadn't broken that chain of cause and effect reaction in your own thinking. It's like I see that I'm doing this in my thinking and I've got to heal it, not try to talk myself around to a better way of seeing it. The better way of seeing things comes about when I'm willing to relinquish what it is that I'm using it for in the first place. Right? Healing is not a concept. Healing is not a spiritual perspective. It's an action of mind which lets go of the whole story in the moment where I see that I'm the storyteller, and actually leaves it blank and waits and listens and allows for something else to occur that's not of my own making. And that's going to take a minute. It's like we talk about that pregnant pause. There's going to be a moment where you feel like you've got to step in and fix it and have your 2 cents worth and do something. Right? And the temptation is always there to do that. But I'm always being asked, step back, let God take care of it. Step back, let the universe sort this out. Right? You don't have to satisfy the demands of the world. You don't have to fix the problem, because there is actually no problem. There is only an opportunity. But it's like you got to let go of the controls in order to be able to see it. What if I let go and everything's still the same? It's like, well, that's not letting go, is it? That's just seeking assurances for what you think letting go might look like. There's always going to be the leap of faith. There's always going to be a stepping into the unknown in this. And that's always going to entail the upwelling of an emotional response.
The overwhelm of believing that there's terror and doomsday.
Right.
And then on the other hand, and there are instances that I recognize it's for me and it's opportunity.
Right. Ready, Bibiana? Let's stay in the terror and doomsday. All right, ready? Now stay there. This is a journey into fear. If you're strong enough, you'll draw your circle and have faith and stay there in your own thinking with that. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to find on the other hand. There is no other hand. We're here to actively seek out where it is that we're fearful, where it is that we're dread the doomsday. That's what we're here for. We're not here to make it look better spiritually. That's the Holy Spirit's job, you know. So it's like I would always invite to you, Viviana, sit with that.
I'm horrified. I'm horrified.
Of course you are. Of course you are. Join the club.
I'm absolutely hopeless and helpless in it.
Tina will lend you her bread knife. You can. So, ready? Viviana, listen. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Right? It's like a ghost train. You know, when a little kid goes through the ghost train and it's horrifying. They put their hands over their eyes. They don't want to see. But it's only when they come later to understand it's a rubber skeleton. It's just a sheet over a balloon. It's not really real. It only has the meaning that I've given it. Right? And in that, you learn to step back and be the observer of it rather than the reactor to it. Okay. Now that takes some mind training. You may not be ready to do that yet, or maybe you are, but it's going to be always there, and you're going to know that it's always there, despite your best efforts to pretend it's not and do something else. And you know? My way of thinking and Jesus' way of thinking is that it's like, well, this awakening keeps gentle pace with you, but when you're already aware of it, why wouldn't you ask for a miracle? Because look what's occurring in not dealing with it. You're putting off confronting that terror and thus staying terrified. That's not what we're trying to do in this course. We're here to be healers. We're here to heal. It's like I see that there's terror there. I see that there's fear. I see that there's all this stuff. Now, what am I about as a healer? I'm here to heal that. I'm going to walk into the valley of the shadow of death. My rod and my staff. Is that right, Tina? You should do all the biblical quotes, really. I'm terrible at it. He comforts me, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but that's why we're here. This is the place where I see the terror, right? Now, the terror that seems to be presented out there in the world is the catalyst for what I think I'm seeing in my own mind. It's the tip of the iceberg of what's really going on underneath, right? What's really going on underneath is the Holy Spirit's down there in the basement with his little jackhammering out the foundation for my whole fearful thought system. He's like, what's this doing here? I'm just, we'll get rid of this. And Bibiana's on top going, hang on a minute. I'm not ready for this whole thought system to collapse. Right? But at some point you will be, because at some point you did. Right? We're looking at a dream that's already over. I'm back in time in your dream telling you, Bibiana, you've already done this. You've already let go of the conceptual self-association that you think you have with the world as a mechanism that you used to use to defend against the light, and now that you're learning to use to bring yourself into a truer and more accurate alignment with it. But your only part in the whole thing is that you be willing to allow it to happen, not to manage the happening. The Holy Spirit doesn't need a manager. Just needs you to get out of the way. He needs you to give permission to say yes to doing that healing work for you, and then it can be done. But it doesn't do any good if you keep running away by making up another story or another story or another story. Forget about family and friends and ex-husbands. Forget about all that shit. All of that shit's brought you to this moment here and now.
It's financial security, retirement, some kind of not built up. Oh, everything collapsed.
Good.
No time to travel.
Look where you are now that story has brought you to. You're feeling already. Stay in it. Stay in that feeling. You call it terror. Already, listen to this. You call that feeling terror. You call it fear. Right? I call it the love of God.
Yeah.
If God, ready, listen to this. If God is everything, then what you're feeling is the love of God misinterpreted by your ego as fear and terror. You're afraid of it because you've been taught badly to be afraid of it. Now breathe it in. You're a warrior. You're a crusader. It's like, holy cow, I'm looking at this whole, it's just energy. I'm looking at this energy from a fearful point of view. But if God is everything and God is love, then what am I fearful of but love? It's like I'm getting my knickers in a twist for nothing. It's like I've put love off for billions. I'm just going to use the story here, right? For billions of years, I've denied God till I get to this place, to the point where I don't even remember what the love of God is. I'm told by Jesus that it's within me and that it's the kingdom and that I'm part of it and all of that, but I don't remember what it is. So at the onset of the first huge emotional upheaval that I have, which could only ever really be love, because I'm in denial of it and can't fundamentally remember what it is, I'm going to say that's not love, because that's all I've ever done, is try to demand love on my own terms rather than accept it as it is. But literally when the floodgates open and the Holy Spirit's doing his work, it's going to feel like my chest is going to explode. And instantly the ego is going to be like, what's that? That's not good. That's terrible. That's fearful. That's that person's fault. That person's fault. I'm reacting to things and make up a story about it. Right? Let go of making up the story about it and simply sit in it and let the Holy Spirit show you what it is. Stop calling it fear. Stop calling it terror. Just let it be what it is and allow it to happen from a point of view of observing it and being part of it, but not interacting with it, not validating it. I don't know if that makes sense, but like, be the observer. Does that sit somewhere with you?
Yes, smell the roses.
Right, exactly. What you call fear, Jesus calls fasten your seatbelt. Or loosen your seatbelt, one or the other. It's like, whatever. Take your seatbelt off, you don't need it anymore. But it's like these points, these holy instants. It's like I'm turning over I'm looking at the one side of the coin that's the yin and the yang. It's got this black and white squiggly thing that goes around and round and round. And I'm looking at that in my thinking, trying to decide how it is I can just keep the yin and not have to face the yang, even though they just keep going around and around and around, instead of turning the whole thing over and seeing that there's nothing on the other side other than the love of God. So in the yin and the yang, in the thing that I'm looking at, which shows up out there seems to be the good, the bad, the better, and the worse, and all of these things. And I'm seeing where it is that I'm interacting with it, and I see why it is that I'm doing that. But in the moment I see where it is I'm doing that, I need to allow the Holy Spirit to flip it over to me and show me that none of it's so, because I already know none of it's so. But I'm addicted to trying to work it out. I've been trained badly and taught badly to continue to try and work it out. And the ego will even use my best spiritual learnings as a way to try and work it out, which isn't the working out that we're talking about. My thoughts don't mean anything, including my thoughts about A Course in Miracles, including my thoughts about Jesus or my thoughts about the Holy Spirit, my thoughts about God, my thoughts about anything. But using those thoughts will bring me to this place, right in the paradox. If I'm honest, if I use those thoughts, I'll bring my mind to the place where I seem to exist but don't exist. That's where I want to get to. It's like literally right up against the veil, right at the edge of the door. And I can knock on the door and tell the Holy Spirit, hey, I want to come in now. And the door will be open, you know. The mind training gets you to realize partly how it is that you've allowed yourself to be taught badly, and also to be vigilant for where those moments are, those little key moments in your mind training where you see your own footprint in it. So, oh, I see what I'm doing now. I put my finger on my nose. I see that I keep doing this. I see that I keep buying into the story, the drama, the whatever, and using it for a purpose that is miscreative and doesn't serve me. I don't know how to stop doing that, but I want to stop doing that. I want something else, but I'm not going to decide for myself what the something else is. I'm just going to let that be miraculous. We draw the circle, we sit and we breathe, hold that energy. Don't try to avoid it. We hold that energy that we call fear and terror, and we let ourselves go into it. Because what else are you going to do? Put it off until next time? That makes no sense. Everything's love. Everything is love. As above, so below. It's only me that can't see it properly. I've trained myself to ignore it. I've trained myself to deny it and give myself every valid reason, according to me, why it can't possibly be love or why it shouldn't look the way it looks. But what's out there is only representing the way I'm thinking in here. When I can accept finally that my thoughts don't mean anything, I can stop trying to reference what I think goes on in here with what seems to be out there. Like, oh, hang on a minute. Let me just accept atonement for myself. Let me just accept oneness. I'm the dreamer of my dream in this situation. This is representing to me fear and doubt and disbelief and terror and all of these things. I need a miracle. I don't need to try and posture it in another frame of reference to make myself feel better or justify where it is I'm at in my own transformation, because my transformation has to be active. It's got to be activated and active in my mind. It's not a concept. My freedom is not conceptual, it's literal. That mind, the mind that just yak, you're swapping worldly thoughts, and for a moment through transition, you're swapping worldly thoughts for spiritual thoughts, right? But you don't want those spiritual thoughts either. We're trying to get to the place just beyond the Course in Miracles. Like Jesus says, this course is the beginning, right? And now we have no more use for words, right? Our thoughts don't mean anything, but we're going to purify our thinking to the point where we get to the place where we can realize that our thoughts don't mean anything, and instruct our minds that it's okay not to depend upon those thoughts for what happens next. It's kind of a I don't know if trepidatious is the word, but it's kind of trepidatious to step into a place where you realize that your understanding of things isn't required. Stop trying to understand. Let it be miraculous. Is that a word, Laurie? Trepidatious? I don't think it is actually. I think I just made it up. But anyway, we'll come back to that. We'll do a little light session later, Bibiana, and we'll come back to it. I'm going to use your situation to propel the light experience that we have, okay? The light healing. But I want you to sit there and look at the fear, look at the terror that you saw. Right? Don't try to avoid it. It's not fear and it's not terror, despite that's how you've labeled it. And allow yourself to sit there in it until the Holy Spirit can show you, can flip it over like, whoop, oh. Remember, your understanding is not required. Your willingness is. Just a little willingness. Doug, back to you.
Hey there. So there was a pretty cool miracle in that on Monday I got COVID. And so it's been, 5 days, and it's been interesting to experience it. And what was nice about it was I just went along with it, and just each day, just kind of like a companion of sort, just to notice like how it was relating to what I thought about it, if I thought about it or didn't think about it. I really wasn't concerned about it. And, like the fever thing going on. So there wasn't any thinking that I was aware of either. And then all of a sudden today, it like just vanished. It was like just gone.
Right.
And it was so much fun. Like all of a sudden I felt so it wasn't that I haven't been unhappy because of it. I haven't been depressed. I wasn't really anything other than, knowing that this body felt like shit. And, but it was just a lot of fun today not to feel it. And it really felt like a gift, like, oh, this is sweet. This feels really sweet. So that's interesting. The other thing that's interesting is that when I was a kid, my mother created this dependency with me. It was about this, how I knew the world was through her. And then and this kind of goes back to me talking last week about, will I ever love again? Will I ever kiss again? Will I ever have any relationship again? Will anybody ever tell me they love me? And then throughout my life, looking for that reinforcement, like to tell me who I am. And so it's been a while now since I've had that. On Sunday, I got really good news about me being able to be a part of this larger group in Canada where I'll be able to help people. So that had a really great meaning for me. And so I got off the telephone or what have you with her and getting that information. And I was just so grateful. I just sat in the chair, and it wasn't anything special. It was just the really wonderful feelings of gratitude, of connecting with other people. And so, is it to connect other people to get my needs met, via this kind of early conditioning with my mother relationship and all that? Well, it really didn't matter. And yet I was very, very happy. And I couldn't share it with anybody. Like there was nobody I could call who would get it. It's like, say, hey, those people are just gone. I don't really have any friends. I mean, you people know me probably better than anybody now. And so this is now going back to, you were talking about, Tina looking out at the void. And so on Sunday, I looked out after me, feeling so happy. And then I looked out sitting in this chair here, and I looked out into the world as I created it. And, it was completely empty. And it just got, when I was observing it getting darker, more of a void, sadder. And I was like, oh shit, this is not good. There's nobody I can share this with. In the past, have somebody be happy for me and, hear the enthusiasm. And as I looked around my internal world, and it was fine. It was fine. I experienced it. I was glad to have some honesty that there's nothing, there's nobody, there's no satisfaction. And and I sat here and I did a light circle for myself, and which is something I do fairly regularly, and just had a response and, you know, just let myself go, not knowing what I was going to feel, just go blank after what I just described to you. And, you know, I felt nothing. It was like, oh, all right, well, that was an interesting little ride. I don't feel anything now. And I was okay with it. Then Monday turned around and fucking COVID showed up. And so I'm curious what you believe about this. So I don't want to make up a story. That vibration of that emptiness, that void, that nothingness, it didn't scare me. I wasn't shocked. It's like I welcomed it. It's like it was honest. You know, there's never been anybody, nobody exists. There's nothing out there. And once I knew the truth by experiencing nothing, which is peace and freedom and love and all that, you know, the following day, you know, I got this fucking COVID thing. Do you believe there is a physical vibration that drew that in, or is this system completely two separate things, or is just Holy Spirit helping me with the whole thing? You know, how do I look at it?
So if I was to answer your question, how do I look at it? I could only ever answer it from how do I look at it?
Yeah.
Right. Really, how you look at it is how you look at it. But I would always want to look at it how Jesus looks at it. It's like there's a reference for looking at everything that is infallible, right? Which is lesson number 1. Nothing I see means anything. Number 10, my thoughts don't mean anything. Right? I'm not here learning to look at and evaluate the form associations that I seem to find myself in as the avatar. I'm here learning to use those form associations that I see myself in as the avatar to bring me to a deeper level, or to a greater connectedness with an idea in my mind that believes that I actually am the avatar, right? So when you say I saw the void, right, and the emptiness and the nothingness, and it didn't upset you, right? That's exactly what I was just telling Bibiana, how you can say things, right, and witness things. And like with Dean, exactly the same thing. He's in the middle of his story that he's telling me, he starts telling me how he got these flashes of light in his meditation, and kept on with his story as if he didn't even hear himself say that. Whereas to me, that's the most incredible thing ever. If anyone tells me they've seen a flash of light or had a light experience of any magnitude, whether in meditation or whatever, I'm instantly like, woohoo, something's going on in that mind, right?
Yeah.
The idea that I could see the void. Now, the void is literally where I want to be.
Yes.
Right? All the time. I want to be in that empty space, that nothing, and drawn in, even though it only has to happen once totally, and then it's done. There's no more void after that. There's nothing to fall into. But the idea that I would see it, or even postulate it as an idea or whatever in my own mind, and that I would be okay with it, to me, and like, because you're asking me, what do I think about that, right? To me, would signify to me that I'm not really connecting with the void. Because the void is terrifying. It's like Bibiana's, right? It's terrifying because that's the ego reaction to it. The only way I can see it is from the ego. I can't see it from Christ because there's no void in God. There's no lack in God.
Yeah.
I have to see it from the ego, from my mind in denial, because it's what the denial is represented by. Right? So the idea then, and this is a good thing, right? The idea that you can see the void or see that emptiness and nothingness. It's like, now know, right? You now know where that is in your mind.
Yes.
You got to a point somewhere in your mind somehow where you saw the void and saw the nothingness and the meaninglessness and everything of it. Now go into the void. Right? It's like getting to the edge of the cliff and jumping over the cliff. It's two separate things. It's like I can see the edge of the cliff and see that there's nothing beyond there except the vast expanse of ocean or whatever it might be beyond there. But I've got to jump. I've got to go into it. So all that is in the void, you know, when you go, when you do a roller coaster or something like that, and there's that moment where your stomach, it's like, there's like that. That's what it's like in the void, right? But in the moment that you recognize you're losing your stomach, it comes back again and you're okay, and you just keep going on with the thing.
Yeah.
It's like when a parachute jump, in the moment of actually jumping with a parachute. I don't know if anyone's ever done it, but I did it once. And there's that moment where your stomach feels like it's coming up out of your mouth and like, ah! And the inertia and the G-forces draw you into this thing. And there's a moment of terror there, right? The void is like that emotionally, right? But it's only me that calls it terror, right? It's actually love. There is only love. But it's me that says it's scary. It's me that says it's terror. So when I say that I can see the void or whatever, or when you tell me you can see the void, you're okay with it. It's like, well, that's not the void. I know that I can see the void when it scares the shit out of me. Right? You should have seen Tina's face on Wednesday. You can look at it and look at it and look at it, and you can see it reasonably, conceptually, and all this sort of stuff, and you can look at it 1,000 times. But when you actually step into it, it consumes you. It sucks you in. There's nowhere to go with it. It's a moment of like, you feel like you're going to lose yourself entirely. And
yes, and the light groups you've done here weekly, you know, I've been able to do that in the present moment. So I am in agreement with you, definitely.
Oh, good. I would say, Doug, go deeper.
Yes.
I would just say, try to connect with it at a deeper level, or ask for help to connect with it would be better at a deeper level, and allow yourself to go into it rather than to be in the examination of it.
Yes.
But you're not going to do that until you're ready, and you're not going to do that until you're strong enough. And in actual fact, there's a kind of an orchestration to it. It's like with me and Bibiana. I couldn't possibly be telling Bibiana to sit in her fear unless she was ready to do that, right? Unless she was strong enough to do that, or unless there were other contributing factors where she had no choice but to do that.
Yes.
You know, it's like, because the alternative to not doing that in her case is going to be different than in your case and everybody else's case. Everything's always case by case. You can't just paint everybody with the same brush in this and just say, right, you go and forgive this and you go and forgive that and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't work that way. It's like the Holy Spirit keeps pace with you where you're at, and there's no way to know whether someone who's been walking this path for 50 years is any more prepared to face what's on it than someone who's been walking it for 50 minutes.
Right.
Like consciously walking as in aware walking it. People have spontaneous spiritual awakenings all the time, but to have one that's conscious, that you're consciously aware of, to have one that you're consciously participating with, that's a whole other kettle of fish. Because you're kind of like preparing yourself for it. You're becoming revelation ready. And you know you're becoming revelation ready because Jesus is telling you in no uncertain terms in the book. That's what's happening here. You're becoming revelation ready. You're learning to become miracle minded so that the revelation can happen. The revelation that the Father and the Son are one. But it's like, you got to teach this to hear it. You're not going to hear it from me. I can only try and make this reasonable to you from whatever perspective that it's been experiential in me from. I can only talk to you about it from my own experience. I can tell you what the book says. I can pick up the book and read the book and tell you the whole thing and quote the Bible perfectly, chapter to chapter sometimes, but maybe never. But it's you that's got to, you know, it's you that's got to put this into practice. You'll learn it when you teach it, and you'll hear yourself teaching it, and you hear yourself. It's like Bibiana. She saw in her own mind the purpose that she'd given everything she was doing. She saw what she was doing it. but wasn't connected enough with it in that moment to actually transfer it or flip it over through an action of healing in that moment, right? So same thing. That's the same thing every single mind on the planet does. It says one thing but does another. Well, that's the simplest way to put that.
Yes,
I'm saying I want,
going deeper with
I'm
it
saying
is
I want
really
the peace of God, right? Lesson 200. To say these words is nothing, but to mean these words is everything, right?
yes.
Say it and say it and say it. I want the peace of God. I want the peace of God. And all I'm going to do is sit here and go, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. You're a liar. You're a liar. You're a liar. And you're going to get so pissed off at me lying. All of a sudden, you're going to catch yourself calling you a liar. All of a sudden, you'll catch yourself getting pissed off.
Right.
I'm here to piss you off. If I'm doing my job right, I'm here to upset all the apples in the cart. I'm not here to be a nice spiritual person, tell you wonderful blessings and all that crap. I'm here to poke the hornet's nest with a stick. Right? There's a facade, there's a spiritual facade that drops down over the seeker. I'm spiritual now, and all my friends are spiritual, and we follow this guru, that guru, blah, 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 blah. If your guru isn't kicking your ass, go find one that does, because like, what are you trying to do? Make a better identity? If you're not falling apart, it's like St. Paul or St. Peter, whatever. I die daily. I die daily. Every day I'm fucking in a disaster. I wake up in this world and I'm like, holy fuck, I'm still here. I would have thought I'd just transition in my sleep like a good little spiritual person, and I'd wake up in the clouds with Jesus and the angels, and all of this would be over, thank God, finally. But it's like, I die daily. All right, let me do my death. I'm here anyway, so what the fuck? Let me just get into it, realize my bullshit, and, finger on the nose, and look for the healing moment. Look for that moment where I can see what it is I'm doing in my mind, so I can bring about the corrective principle by asking for the miracle.
Yes.
Everything else is not that. Everything else I do is simply not that.
Okay.
It doesn't matter how many quotes by enlightened minds I want to defend myself from facing that moment with, or any of that stuff. It doesn't matter. Your way, and you're going to fall into it tripping over your own shoelaces, or you're going to do it gracefully by the grace of God. It doesn't matter, but it's going to happen. There's nothing to avoid it. And the fact that you're sitting in this Zoom meeting and listening to these words, which to anyone else who's having a nice life would sound crazy, it's like you're in the right place. You're in the, we're all on the roller coaster and one of the wheels is busted, and we know it's busted. We know that damn thing's going to come off the track at the worst possible moment, and we're all going to die in a horrible roller coaster crash. But we're getting on anyway. We're just going to get that shit out of the way and get it done. We're going to die to our false self so that our new self, our true self, can be reborn in us. We can't put new wine into old skins. I nearly got that wrong, Tina, didn't I? I feel like you're on the committee, Tina, with your board, and you're checking my biblical. You're in charge. She's in charge of biblical quotes. No, got that one wrong. You're going to have to take your next life to study the Bible a bit better. Right. Yeah, that was last life. Here I am again. So, like, the difference between saying it and hearing it is two different things, right? Jesus says you got to teach this to hear it. You got to teach it to learn it. You can't just decide to teach peace and then be teaching peace. You got to be the peace. You got to be that thing. And to do that, you got to realize what's not peaceful inside, so that I can change that, so that I can heal myself of the belief in that. It's not about becoming a better version of Dave or Doug or anything like that. It's about realizing what I actually am as spirit. I've got to let go of Doug and Dave and Bibiana entirely. Got to let that go. There is no Dave, no Doug, no Bibiana, no Tina, no Heidi, no Laurie. These are just forms. These are just bodies and catalysts and avatars. You know? The truth of me, there's never a place really where I can say, I saw that I did this or I saw that I did that. Because I'm only attempting to validate the illusion of what I think I am as this body. Right? But I can see that I'm buying into the story of thinking that I'm a someone doing a something and change it when I'm holding that belief about myself. See where that's at, Doug?
Yes, I do. I get it. Yeah.
The I that I think I am doesn't actually exist, but the I that I actually am as God created me to be is what existence is. It's what life is.
Right. Yeah.
But the confusion of what I think I am with my bodily association, this bodily form, it's rampant.
Yes.
You know? So when I'm looking at my and you do, I mean, you know, it's like there's some of the lessons are like review your day and tell yourself blah blah blah, all of this sort of stuff. You have to review it from the point of the belief that I'm a body. You can't review it from the point of I am spirit. That's just like spiritual transcendence, you know, like you just, you know, let's do it where it's at. I actually believe I'm a body. I believe I'm in a world. Jesus is telling me it's not true. Let's bring those two beliefs together, those two things together and find the point of paradox, right? Because that's where the Holy Spirit meets me, where I become willing to bear witness to the truth in the letting go of the false. You know, love is letting go of fear. Love is not making a more tolerable version of fear. Love is not reinventing myself so that I'm less fearful. Love is not using all my spiritual determinations to try and build a better framework of thinking about things so that I don't have to look at my fear, right? Or don't have to actually confront it. I want to confront it. That's why I'm here. I'm a confronter. And I'll use whatever shows up out there as the temptation to believe falsely about myself as the catalyst for not only revealing where my false belief is, but for bringing about the healing. So that keep coming around again and again and again. Like who the hell wants to be looking at the void every time, forever and ever and ever? It's ugly. It's terrible. It's like a vast chasm in the mind. Like when you're a little kid in the bath and your mother takes the plug out and you're like, oh, I've got to get out before all the water goes because I might get sucked down the plug hole. You know, that's a real fear. That's a real kind of thing. But it's only fear because that's what I've been taught to call it. That's how I've been taught to associate with it. You can just as easily sit in the bathtub and watch the water go out and wonder where the water goes without having any kind of reaction to it at all. It's not even in the mind, you know, it doesn't even. But I know for a fact that the void is, the physical world is the manifestation of fear. Right? It's symbolically a symbolic manifestation of the idea of denial, which is what fear is. It's fear given credibility, if you like. But because I adjust to it, adjust, I never actually allow myself to be in one position for long enough to actually feel the energetic pulse of it, to actually feel what it's really about. As soon as I stand still in the world, I start to get antsy inside. I start to feel this anxiety. I start to wonder about things, and I'll look for things to fill up the gap.
Yeah.
I need a drink. I need to find friends. I need to find validation. Because the last thing I want to do is be alone with myself for a long enough period where I start to feel that emptiness inside and get drawn into the void again.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally God knocking on the back door going, come on, what are you doing in there? It's like your dad. When you're a kid and you sit in the toilet for like half an hour, you got nothing else to do. Why sit in the toilet? And everybody's queued up outside. Come on. Get out of there. Wipe your bum. Get out. It's like, all right. But everything is that. Every situation, like Bibiana's situation, classic. You know, it's like I see what I'm doing, but I'll just keep doing it. I'll reframe it. I'll do something else. That's what the mind does. That's your mind, Doug, my mind, Heidi's mind, Tina's mind, Laurie's mind. That's what we're doing. We've trained ourselves to adjust. And we'll use spiritual thinking to adjust with. I'll give myself my best spiritual understandings on things so that I don't have to feel. Because when I feel, it's terrifying. When I feel, it feels empty. When I feel, it's like Jesus says, that tiny moment of terror where time seemed to come to take the place of eternity, right? Which has to be false, because eternity means that there is no time. Time can't be real. Instantly, I'm back into the paradox again. Right? Instantly, I'm back into that point where there's one thing that Jesus is telling me and another thing that I believe in. Right? Now, choose again, dear brother. Choose again. Right? Oh, I see. I can't wrap my head around it. I can't work it out. It's impossible. It's a paradox because it's impossible. Right? There's no point in trying to work out the impossible or look at it from a better angle or reframe it so that it makes more sense. Mm-hmm. It's a paradox. A cheesecake is a cheesecake. You can't say it's a carrot cake. You can't say it's a mud cake. A paradox is a paradox. You can't make it into something else. It's impossible. It's impossible because it doesn't actually exist. Now, in that place where it doesn't actually exist, stay there. Don't adjust. Let it happen.
Right.
If you want to call that falling apart, you can call it falling apart. If you want to call it falling together, you can call it falling together. It doesn't matter what, but undergo the experience. Have the experience. Be still and have the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see where it is that you feel that uncomfortableness, you feel that little inner irritation, that if you sit with it, it'll expand out and out and out and out and out and become the void, right? See where it is, that little irritation, and you want to adjust off, and maybe there's something on television, or maybe I need to go to town and do some shopping, whatever. Anything, but be still. Anything. But literally, like even the Bible, be still and know that I'm God. I'm not going to quote chapter and verse on that. I don't know. Heidi, you're gonna be our new biblical scholar. I'm giving you the job. We're two come together as witness, so you and Tina, you can fact check my good talk. Laurie.
Dave.
Oh, I like that one. Good. Yeah. Thank you. What am I adjusting to? Is that what you're asking me, Laurie? Adjusting to this moment with all my talk?
I don't know. Am I?
Probably, yeah, probably. I'll just say yes. Now I need a miracle.
Well,
Oh.
I have felt a shift this week after processing last week.
Good.
People have noticed without me saying anything.
I can notice your whole thing is different. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did get a button push this week, and I have a motto that I don't analyze, I analyze. But I have stepped back from analyzing it, and yet the ego keeps wanting me to get involved.
Oh yeah.
And I'm going, no, I'm just gonna let go. And
when Heidi talked and then when Bibiana talked, it was like when I heard the word victim, I went, bingo, okay. I am not the victim of the world I see. I do not know what anything is for, and I will step back and let him lead the way. And I just felt like, whoosh.
Right.
It was exactly what I needed.
Good. I didn't hear the word. Did you guys say the word victim?
Yeah, Viviana mentioned feeling like a victim. And I went,
No.
thank you, bingo,
Oh, yeah.
that was for me. Yeah, so.
It's just one mind. It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's just one mind. You could kind of like pick up this book and open any page and read it and like have an association. Like the whole thing is just the same thing again and again and again in a different way. I'm looking at it, I'm looking at it, I'm looking at it. And if I can't hear it this way, I'll hear it that way. And if I don't hear it through this person, I'll hear it through that person. That's why I love this coming together, this Zoom meeting thing. You know, it's like when Jesus talks about salvation as being a collaborative venture. It's like, look at all the moments that have occurred through things like this, where we're actually coming together consciously to look at our crap. We're consciously here to expose fear. We made a choice somewhere. I want to look at my fear. I want to see if there's anything still lingering, lurking in the background here that's affecting my whatever shows up out there. How many places do you actually do that in the world? It's like, I don't know about you guys, but there's no ashram or nothing around where I live. There's nowhere I can go other than, you know, right, exactly. It's like there's a dedication and a devotion to your own true religion, which is your own true appreciation of the power of the mind and the creativity or the artistic expression of the heart. You know, that's all you're devoting yourself to, really. To just allowing yourself to be the most perfect expression to let it come out. It's like, Doug, you would know, trying to put your heart and soul onto a canvas. It's like there's a moment where you just do it. But it's like for an artist, it seems as if you have to go and buy paints and canvases and brushes and sit down to actually do a whole orchestration of something so that a moment can be expressed. Right? It's the same with musicians. We have to go and buy a guitar and a drums and a whole thing and come together so that there's this whole moment that happens where everybody's in a jam session and all of a sudden everyone's like, what was that? We did something and that was a thing. You know when you got a #1 hit, you know when there's a song there, you know, and it's not just notes and stuff. There's an alignment that happens. This is the same. So when that alignment happens, Laurie, you'll have a shift. Last week's Zoom meeting was pretty good. I liked it. Wednesday's one was pretty full on. I liked that too. It's funny because I have this thing where Tina, I look at you on the screen, you know, and it's like there's a sense of care and concern that I have for you as like, here's dear Tina, and I wanted to be able to get through this transformation unscathed. I wish I could just give her the whole thing, but I know you've got to go through this thing, and I know there's going to be daggers and knives, and it's like, oh man, this is so tough. It's like I'm like joining you on a journey into a place where I know you don't want to go, and you're gonna want to kill me for taking you there. But at the same time, because of the love I have for you, I'm not going to let you down. I'm going to just take you there. I know somewhere in your mind you'll thank me later. You're not going to thank me on this side of it, you know, and I'm not asking for thanks. I mean, all gratitude be to God, but you know what I mean? It's like, It's funny. I used to sit there, and Ted used to rail on some of the guys, and a couple of times, like, he called me out on things. At the time, I always knew there was something helpful happening. I always knew it was something for my own benefit that was actually going on, but I couldn't see it at the time. It was only in hindsight when you look back and you go, oh my God, you know, and you have those moments of, you see what it is you're doing and somebody points it out to you, you know.
Oh my God. It's such a struggle. It's such a struggle. And I just can't. Oh,
without your brothers, you'd be screwed, you know, without and all those guys, I'd have been so screwed. But the thing is, we're not being asked to point out our brothers' errors. We're being asked to take it on board as our own and to stand together in that, to draw our circle in the recognition that, hang on, we're in a relationship that we're making holy here. We have a true purpose for this relationship. But it always seems to be that there's exposure, there's, you know, and in this meeting, I remember the stories about, I know I've mentioned this before, Sai Baba, or I don't think it was Ramana Maharshi, where the guys, his closest disciples anyway, would be with him in the temple or with him in his inner circle. And he would actually let them know what they were doing wrong. He would actually like call them out and go this, that, and the other. Whereas all the other guys that were just sort of around the periphery, he would just bless them and love them, and they as like a blessed figure. But Maharshi. But the guys that were really in the thick of it with him, like same thing with Osho, the guys that were really in the thick of it with him, man, they went through so much crap, you know. But that's what they signed up for. They signed up for that, you know. It's like, I didn't even realize when I was sitting with Ted, I didn't realize I'd signed up for that. But I had a funny feeling it's what I needed.
Every time you would laugh, oh my God, I wanted to just kill you. Just, like, stop laughing at me. Oh. So
I'm not really laughing at you.
I know, but that's what it was in my mind, was like,
I know.
And then, you know, all of the justifications, it doesn't really matter. But something really beautiful is happening right now. It's like there's this light coming from you. It's kind of cool. When I do your thumbnails, I take your picture and I demolish you.
You draw rude things.
No, I overexpose everything so that you're just light.
Oh.
And then I put you on top of the light, so it has like a little light behind you. And right now, that's what I'm seeing, is like that overexposure.
That sounds a bit kinky.
It's weird. But I see it right now. It's kind of.
Oh, good. It's funny, you know, that lesson 16 or whatever, I see familiar little edges of light around the same familiar objects and things and whatever. So, but that's cool. Heidi has a key. I have to get closer, like as if it would help me see the cat any better. Oh, I miss my cat. There you go. There's an emotional. Oh, look at him. He's so pretty. I feel like I should get another cat now. 50 cats. Become the cat man of my street. Yes. All right. What do we want to do here? I mean, I'm open. Let's do something. Should we do something? Everybody's had a bit of exposure. There's a few open wounds, some raw nerves exposed. Heidi, I don't feel like you're exposed enough. You even went and brought your cat in as a comforter. You know, it's like, I'm just making shit up, you know, like I'll use anything. I'll just see if there's a trick there. But Doug, you've gone very dark. You got a light there. Let's have Doug. There we go. All right. Let's do a little light session, shall we?
Let's do this.
Let's do this. All right, everybody straight. Sit up straight. If you're leaning back in bed or whatever, just sit up. Get yourself, you know, we're preparing to meet the Christ here. Let's adjust our clothing and present ourselves nicely, even if we are full of shit.